right. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage of fighting history. No, I'm just playing. This is going to be a fun video today, as you guys see here. We're going to be talking about... This is going to be a Let's Discuss video. As you guys know, my Let's Discuss videos are about, just about anything. And today we're going to be talking about Dragon Ball FighterZ. And the topic of discussion is going to be my Dragon Ball FighterZ DLC wish list. That's what this is going to be. So let me get the visuals up. My Dragon Ball FighterZ DLC wish list. So, first thing we got to do is we got to put a disclaimer up. I don't know if you guys can hear me that good. Let me lower the music just a little bit. But the disclaimer. I know I've been one of the people that have avidly spoken about this game. Avidly spoken negatively about this game due to my own personal reasons of me not liking it. And things of that nature. Why I haven't bought it yet. Why I don't really, support it like that. Or more so, I'm teetering on whether or not I should buy it. And despite the fact that I may have my negative feelings about the game and the one button mash combo system and the button mash favoring combo mechanics and all that, I'm still a fan of Dragon Ball. I don't even feel comfortable calling myself fans because I see how those fans act and I don't act nothing like them. But I still enjoy everything that Dragon Ball has done since the 90s. I still enjoy everything that Dragon Ball Z brings to the table and everything that the creators of Dragon Ball have done and have inspired other animes and video games and all that sort. So I'm still an admirer of the work and the legacy that is Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, the original Dragon Ball, etc., etc. Also, don't expect this DLC list to be, out there. This DLC list was constructed to be very reasonable. This DLC list was constructed to be how can I put it? I didn't make this list to add a bunch of clones of different characters to the roster. I wanted to add some variety and to bring some light to the lesser known characters that we have not seen too much of in any type of Dragon Ball versus game or any type of Dragon Ball Z, any Dragon Ball Z fighting game, etc., etc. There's a lot of characters in Dragon Ball Z that have done enough to be those characters to be, their own character in a Dragon Ball fighting game like this, but there's a high chance, obviously, we're not going to see the majority of these characters, but it's still fun to have that type of discussion with people to see what they think. And this is just my own list this is my own, downloadable content wish list. That's all this is. This is my personal wish list. I understand that some wishes don't come true, and most of these won't. But I'm going to have the main list, and I'm going to have an honorable mentions at the end of this as well. So you guys stay tuned. So if you don't see the character that you might like or the characters you would have put on this list, if you made a list of your own, then by all means, make your own video, you do it. I'll check it out. But nevertheless, man, we got to talk about the characters. Now, again, I'm not interested in putting a bunch of clones into the DLC wish list because I feel like we have multiple versions of the same character as it is. And that right there is kind of like distasteful when there's so many characters in the history of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, and even Dragon Ball Super that deserve their spot on a roster of a Dragon Ball Z fighting game. And I think it will be criminal to just continuously add more versions of the same person in the game. That just doesn't make sense to me. I feel like that's a waste of space, and I think it's like a cheap cop-out to actually put effort into making characters that would actually fit well into the game. So again, this is just a DLC wish list. This is just my own personal wish list of characters that I wouldn't mind seeing in Dragon Ball FighterZ if they were to get added as DLC in the future. I don't know. But without further ado, man, let's get started. And I'm going to give you examples as to why I want to see them as well. So the first person I want to talk about is Janemba. Now, Janemba was a villain that had his own movie based around him. You know, the washing machine in the other dimension broke, all the negative energy cast out, and Janemba was formed. At first, he was like this big Majin Buu look, yellow baby looking thing, and then he became what you see before you. And you know, I think he would just be great in a game like this. I mean, to imagine having, you know, a character like Janemba in this game, I think he just fits so well. And then they already have past games to go off of, such as like the Budokai Tenkaichi series and things like that. So he would actually benefit, like, well, not necessarily benefit, but he would actually go well in a game like this. Plus, on top of that, like, we need more characters with swords. I mean, with games like this, we need more swords. You know, I kind of learned that from Smash Brothers. More swords. Hashtag more swords. But most definitely, I think he fits well into a game like this. And with them adding non-canon characters like Broly, I can see them adding a character like Janemba as well. So most definitely Janemba is on that list of one of my, he's number one on my list of my DLC wish list. Number two is a character that I think a lot of people forgot about. It is Demon King Dabura. Now, on the PlayStation 1, the original PlayStation, he was actually in a Dragon Ball fighting game that they had on there. And you know, you have like a fighting game model to somewhat go after when it comes to a character like this. He hasn't been featured, you know, as many characters because there haven't really been a Dragon Ball fighting game like that. As a matter of fact, even in the Dragon Ball Xenoverse games, I don't even think he was in the Dragon Ball Xenoverse games, was he? I'm pretty sure. Anybody in the comments, you guys let me know. I could just re-download Xenoverse 2 and see if he was in that. But I don't think they put him in the game. I don't think they did. He's been missing in action for a while. And I think Demon King Dabura, you know, he was a prominent villain for the time he was in Dragon Ball Z. You know, during the whole Majin Buu saga, you know, he was Babidi's his right-hand man until Majin Buu was born, and then he just cast him aside and Majin Buu beat him up and turned him into chocolate and ate him. But he beat the hell out of Gohan. Now granted, Gohan wasn't 100%, but he still beat the hell out of Gohan. So that gains points in my book. But it will be cool to see Demon King Dabura back in another Dragon Ball Z game. And plus he has a sword, so we got to put him in there, right? Next up is a character that I don't think a lot of people know about. This is the character that gave Kid Trunks his sword. How Trunks got his sword, this is basically how he got it. This character's name is sorry about that. But this character's name is damn, I forgot the character name myself. No, his name is Tapion. That's his name. His name is Tapion. And oh my god. Yeah, but the character's name is Tapion. It's all good. My mouth is getting dry as hell eating them Popeyes biscuits. But yeah, he was the reason why Trunks have received his sword. During one of the Dragon Ball movies, I can't remember the name of the big dragon villain in that movie, but he was basically like the person that sealed the monster away. I think the dragon's name was Harudagarn, and he was in that movie as the person who was supposed to seal Harudagarn up by him playing his flute. He sealed Harudagarn back up, and once at the end of the movie, he, as a gift, he gave his sword to Trunks. So it will be cool to see him in a game where you can like kind of just team them up together, because I think that would be dope. And I don't even think Tapion was in a Dragon Ball fighting game, was he? I want to say maybe he was in one of the Budokai Tenkaichi games. I could be mistaken. I want to say that I've seen him in one, but I don't think he was in Xenoverse, and I don't think he was in Xenoverse 2. Though I could be wrong on that too, because I ain't played Xenoverse in quite some time, so I'm not, up to date on what the roster is. But if not, still, I would like to see him in a Dragon Ball Z FighterZ. I think having him being able to team up with Trunks, I think that'd be like a cool thing. And just imagine like what the dialogue would be between the two. Like, you know what I mean? I think that would be cool. And again, like they're adding well, technically, I think he's canon, considering that Trunks is canon. Not kid Trunks, but like big Trunks, like adult Trunks. Yeah, like adult Trunks was the one that received his sword. I think Kid Trunks got his sword too. But yeah, I think that would be cool to see him in a Dragon Ball FighterZ game. Next up is someone I think everybody's looking forward to be added as DLC later on down the line. He's from Dragon Ball Super, and the Tournament of Power was basically used to introduce his character. And I'm talking about Jiren the Grey. I think anybody that plays Dragon Ball FighterZ, or anybody just a fan of Dragon Ball period that wants to see a character like this in a fighting game, I mean, it's almost guaranteed we're going to see a character like Jiren in Dragon Ball FighterZ. I think he's the most prominent character in Dragon Ball Super to date, and in a tournament in a tournament. But in the Dragon Ball Super tournament of Power, he was one of the more powerful figures, and all the attention was basically focused on him. And to not see him in a Dragon Ball FighterZ game would be kind of criminal, considering how much of an impact he made in Dragon Ball Super. And, they did add Hit. They added Lord Beerus, and they added like one or two other characters from Dragon Ball Super as well, or was like the only ones they added was Hit and Lord Beerus. I don't play Dragon Ball FighterZ, so one of y'all let me know. But most definitely, they added characters from Super nonetheless, and I think Jiren also needs to be added as a character as DLC later on down the line. Next up after that, we have a character that I think showed a lot of great potential. He was up to be the next God of Destruction. And the character I'm talking about is Toppo. I think Toppo will be a great addition to DLC to Dragon Ball FighterZ. And not to mention that, during the Tournament of Power, he actually showed to have a lot of great potential, and he actually activated the destruction energy within him, and he became the God of Destruction Toppo for like a hot second. Now, even though he didn't do anything spectacular during it, I think having Toppo in the game and maybe have him kind of like with Golden Frieza, you can have him transform into his God of Destruction form, even for a little bit, because he did eventually change back once he got knocked out by Vegeta. I still think he will be a good addition to Dragon Ball FighterZ. If they were to add him as DLC, I think that'd be a smart move. And then add Topo and have him have the ability to transform into his God of Destruction form. I think that'd be dope. Next up, we have one of the faster members on this list, and that's Dispo. Now, Dispo, when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, isn't impressive. However, I think his character has done enough in Dragon Ball Super to where I think it warrants him to be his own independent character without any assistance or anything like that. So I think Dispo, he most definitely can be added as a character. I think his speed alone will be something interesting to see in Dragon Ball FighterZ. I don't think they really have too many. I mean, you know, Dragon Ball FighterZ is a very fast-paced game, but to have a character that that focuses purely on speed, I think that would be an interesting character to add onto the roster. You know, I think that'd be cool. So most definitely Dispo. And then he had like a little powered up form, didn't he? To where he went to like extra fast. I don't know what they're calling it. I don't even think it has a name, but it's like his speed boost form or something like that. And to have a character like to give him that ability to transform into whatever that is, I think that'll be something to see. So I would like to see Dispo in Dragon Ball FighterZ as well. Next up is a character that I think a lot of people may not have thought that this character would be added on anybody's wish list, but despite that, I still think people will understand why I'm picking him. And that is General. I'm laughing because of what his name is. It's General Casserole. His name is actually General Casserole, but it's a pun on the word, you know, so it's kind of like funny to me how they always name characters after foods and things like that. But yeah, but General Casserole, he was one of the first people that spoke with Topo about the God. Well, Topo, this is the first character in the Pride Troopers, the first person in the Pride Troopers that Topo spoke to about the Tournament of Power and things of that nature. And I think he would be a great addition to the roster, mainly for this reason only. And I'm gonna say this: just like 17 is an assistance character for Android 18, just like the Ginyu Force are assistance characters for Captain Ginyu, I think for the rest of the Pride Troopers, I don't think they did enough to be like their own character, to be like their own standalone character in Dragon Ball FighterZ. But I think he has done enough to where he could be kind of like the Captain Ginyu Android 18. Like he can be like that character that is basically like a catalyst that sends out the other remaining Pride Trooper team members to do attacks. You know what I mean? Like he could be like that character assistant character. You know, because I think the other Pride Troopers have done enough to where they can have like certain attacks just come out and be used to his advantage. And he did enough hand-to-hand combat to where I can see him actually being, you know, his own character by just calling out other Pride Troopers to attack. You know, besides Jiren Topo and Dispo, I think he would be that character. Like he can be like another Captain Ginyu, basically a character based around the assist attacks of his fellow Pride Troopers, excluding Dispo, Topo, and Jiren. I think he fits that role so well, and I think it would be kind of crazy to not see him in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Next up, we have a character that I think shocked all of us during Dragon Ball Super, and I'm talking about the fusion between Kale and I have to refrain myself from calling the names of the actual vegetable, but Kale and and Cauliflower. Excuse me. Yeah, that's her name. But screw it. So during the tournament of power, they fused and they came up. They turned into the character you see right there in the middle, as Kefla. And with Kefla, excuse me, or Kefla, or is it Kefla? Or is it Kefla? Regardless, I think you can basically kill two birds with one stone with this character, which kind of disappoints me a little bit, because just like what they did with like with Go Tanks, they kind of gave you Kid Trunks and Goten in one character. That way they're not taking up the slot with two different characters. You can still get the same character basically in like a fusion form. And it's kind of like, I would like to see that. But the thing with Kale, more so than pretty much more so than Cauliflower, is that with Kale, you kind of actually want to see her as her own character. Like, just imagine her being like that shy girl, at the beginning of a match, and then all of a sudden she just turns into like this big brolic, broly female, form. I think that'll be something cool to see. But at the same time, I'm like, do they really? You can basically put both of those characters in the game by just fusing them into Kefla and just giving her Super Saiyan form and what have you. I think that'll be satisfying enough. But I kind of want to see Kale as her own character, more so than Cauliflower. Excuse me, my throat hurting a little bit, but it's all right. We're gonna get through this because we got quite a few. Next up is a character that's coming from, since Broly is being added to the game and he's non-canon, I figure why not do more non-canon characters for the wish list. And next up is a character that was like the top villain, actually the final villain, well, the second to the last villain in Dragon Ball GT, and that is Baby. Now, Baby comes from the planet, he's a part of a race called the Tuffles, which the Saiyans destroyed years and years ago, and he was he was created by the Tuffles to basically eradicate the Saiyans on Earth. So he went to Earth, he basically mind controlled Vegeta, and then mind controlled all the rest of the Saiyans, with the exception of Goku and a couple other people. And he just dominated during his time in Dragon Ball GT. And he's been in the Budokai Tenkaichi series. Was he in, I think he was also, I want to say he was in Dragon Ball Xenoverse. I haven't played Xenoverse, so forgive me if he was, to the fact, I think Dragon Ball FighterZ. If they were to put him in there, I think that would be a smart move. Next up, another character I would like to add to the Dragon Ball wish list, DLC wish list, is a character I was talking about with a group of other people, and that's Nova Shinron. Now, Nova Shinron, he had his moment in Dragon Ball GT to where he absolutely showed he can hold his own. I think the move list that he has is very cool. Just seeing a character like that in Dragon Ball FighterZ kind of excites me a little bit, because he has that cool laid-back personality and a deep raspy voice that just oozes badassery, and you just want to play with him. Like, that really says DLC content to me. But next up is the character that Goku, well, Kid Goku from Dragon Ball GT, and Nova Shinron tried to team up to defeat, and Nova Shinron actually ended up getting killed by the guy, and that is Omega Shinron. Now, Omega Shinron, just like Nova Shinron, he is a part of the Shadow Dragons from Dragon Ball GT, which was when the Dragon Balls got overused, dark energy spewed from the Dragon Balls, and each one of the Dragon Balls spawned a Shadow Dragon. And their surname is Shinron, and you know, Nova Shinron and Omega Shinron were the two prominent dragons that came from that time. So that's the reason why I'm focusing on those two so much. Not Ice Shinron, not any of the other Shinrons, but these two. And Omega Shinron, you know, he was originally called Sin Shinron, and then he absorbed the Dragon Balls, and then he became Omega Shinron with the power of all of the other dragons. Excuse my phone, I need to turn this down. I don't need this. I don't need that happening. But most definitely, I think he would make for a great addition. I mean, I've seen him fight, you know, his fighting style in other games. I've seen his moves in other games, and I just think he'll be boss. You know, I think he'll just be crazy. Next up is a character from Dragon Ball GT, and he was a form of two different Android 17s getting brought together, and that is Super 17. I think Super 17 will be a nice addition. Super 17 was basically created by fusing the Android 17 on Earth with an Android 17 that was created in Hell. And they wish those two characters, you know, the doctor that created them, I can't remember his name, please forgive me, it's been so long since I watched Dragon Ball GT, but the doctor that created Hell 17, 17 and that doctor were brought to Earth to fuse the 17 that was already on Earth with the 17 that was created in Hell, and this is the character that came from that. And he was a very powerful character. Actually, he was getting ready to kill Goku, and the only reason why Goku was able to win was because Android 18 actually jumped in the way of a blast that the Super 17 was getting ready to shoot at Goku, and she was kind of bluffing that she still had the bomb in her chest that bomb in the chest that Dr. Gero had originally put in there to basically stop them if they ever went rogue or anything like that. For those of you who remember that moment in Dragon Ball Z, Dr. Gero had a remote. 17 and 18 basically had the remote destroyed. They destroyed the remote. They snatched it from Dr. Gero, and they killed Dr. Gero after that. But that remote was to detonate Android 17 and 18 in case they began to disobey his orders. He could just blow them up and just, you know, like begin all over from scratch. But most definitely, but actually, like, the bombs were to kill Goku as a last-minute effort. But 18 had her bomb removed via a wish from Krillin once Cell got destroyed, and they brought the shit, and they gathered the Dragon Balls to wish all the people back and things like that. Hence the reason why Krillin won over Android 18 and all that. But nevertheless, Super 17 is a character I think will be a crazy addition to Dragon Ball FighterZ. Nonetheless. So next up is another Android. You know, since Android 21 is kind of like the focus point for Dragon Ball FighterZ in the story, we're going to focus on another Android that Dr. Gero made that made his debut after the original Dragon Ball Android saga and the Cell saga. Yeah, but we're going to be talking about in the number 13 spot, ironically, is Android 13. I think he's a character I would like to see in Dragon Ball FighterZ. I think he did good in the movie that he was in. Like, he didn't just necessarily get washed. I think he did a good job with holding his own. The character did a good job holding his own against Goku, and I think he has enough moves to where you can actually see a character like this in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Now, the thing that makes Android 13 so unique is that he was paired up with two other androids, which is Androids 14 and 15. And during the movie that they were featured in, Vegeta and Trunks had destroyed androids 14 and 15, and their main power cells and the computer chips in their head actually got absorbed by Android 13, and he became Super Android 13, which is what he looks like right here. And I think that'd be something cool to see as like a power-up mode. If they do add him, I would like to see it be like a permanent power-up mode, because there wasn't a moment in the movie where he would ever power down or anything like that. I don't, you know, there wasn't a moment where this was like a temporary power-up. This is like a permanent change, a permanent boost. So this is what he looked like after he absorbed the main power cells and computer chips from the destroyed bodies of androids 14 and 15, and he turned into this big monster. And yeah, I just think that would be something cool to see in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Next up, we have one of the most annoying characters that was featured in the Tournament of Power, and a lot of people was waiting for this character to get knocked out because they felt like she was being very annoyed. But when you think about it, every game needs that character that gives that type of that comedic relief that is very powerful, and I think she kind of fits that mold. And I know some of you are going, no, don't do that. Please don't say her. Yes, I'm talking about Ribrane. Ribrane. And off top of my head, I forget what universe she represented, but it was a universe that had the God of Destruction that looked like Cleopatra. But basically, she was the leader of like this love troop. I can't remember the name of them for whatever reason, but it was just like 3 of them, and they were all about, and the universe was basically about the power of love and this, that, and the third. And she was like the leader of that group. And you gotta forgive me, I'm kind of keeping my eye outside. I'm waiting on the UPS as I'm recording this. But absolutely, I think she showed that she could hold her own, and she was one of the last fighters from her universe. Of course, then eventually she got knocked out. I don't know if it was by Vegeta or somebody else, but she passed her powers on to like the remaining 3 guys, and then the guys started wearing love dresses. I don't know, it was weird, but nevertheless, she showed she was powerful enough so she could hold her own. I think her character actually would fit perfectly in Dragon Ball FighterZ, even though she might annoy the hell out of some people, including myself. But most definitely, I say that Ribrane most definitely should be added as DLC in the future in Dragon Ball FighterZ, as much as that may annoy people. I think she would actually fit. Now, next up is a character that I think everybody forgot about. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. Now, this character had a movie which was chronologically, even though the movie came later, after the fact, the character actually, the timeline that this character was actually placed in, it was actually between the time of the wait time during the Cell games, and it was during that time. So the character I'm talking about is the Hachiyak. A lot of people don't know who Hachiyak is. There's a Dragon Ball Z movie called Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans. This was, forgive me if I'm wrong, I want to say this was like the second bioengineered weapon that the Tuffles had created as a last minute. Well, this is like the tech, chronologically, this was the first attempt that the Tuffles had made to destroy the Saiyans, to try to get revenge on them for destroying their planet from, long ago, like before all the Super Saiyans and all that came about. So chronologically, even though the movie came later, like after Dragon Ball GT and all that, at least I believe so, this was like their first attempt at trying to destroy the remaining Saiyans. So this is Hachiyak, and he was in the Dragon Ball He was in a Dragon Ball Budokai Tenkaichi game. I think he was in Dragon Ball Xenoverse as well. But regardless, I don't think we've seen enough of him in a fighting game to the point where I would like to see him in this. Just because of the fact that this is a character I think a lot of people forgot about. I don't think people, like this would be out of left field for a lot of people. But I think he would be a cool addition. On top of that, he has a transformation state where he just turns into like a big Gundam-looking bioengineered mess. And, this is actually a legit form that he had in the movie. I can't remember how he transformed like that. I don't know if he was absorbing the energy of the Saiyans and then he transformed into that later on, or he already had that form already prior to that. But regardless of the fact, I think he will be a cool addition as DLC, just for the fact that I think a lot of people forgot about him, and I think he'll be a good fighter for the roster, nevertheless. So next up, we have a character who was a part of Universe 10, I believe, Universe 10, one of the first universes. He was actually the last fighter Universe 10 had before they got erased in the Tournament of Power. And the character I'm talking about is Ubuni. Now, Ubuni was a character in Dragon Ball FighterZ that had a unique ability. Basically, he was able to phase his body. I don't think they explained it, but basically what his special ability was, and you see him doing it right here in the picture, he was able to like phase his body into different dimensions to make it hard for people to hit him. And Gohan was actually facing this guy, and the only way he could hit the guy was wait until the guy hit him and then counterattack him off of that. So Gohan had to take quite a bit of punishment from Obuni, in order to get any type of hits on him, any type of solid hits on him. And his special ability, I think that's something that in a fighting game, I think it would be cool to see that. And whatever else they didn't show, give him some extra moves and things like that. I think a character like him actually works in a fighting game, because you need a character like this. They kind of have that with Hit, but not so much. Hit is more so of like stopping time. He's not necessarily a character that uses like dimensional phase or dimensional shifting to kind of avoid attacks like that. You know what I mean? Like, he's more so of like freezing time and counterattacking, whereas he just approaches you, phased out in a different dimension, in multiple dimensions and things like that. I think he would be a great fighter for Dragon Ball FighterZ. And last but not least, my last character, the last character on my DLC wish list before I get to the honorable mentions, is a character that was very prominent during the Red Ribbon Army back in Dragon Ball. He even made appearances in Dragon Ball Z later on, I think during the Cell games. And that is General Tao in his cyborg form. I think they should also give him like his human skin as well. I think that'd be cool. But General Tao was the man. If you didn't watch Dragon Ball Z, if you didn't watch, Dragon Ball, then you wouldn't understand why General Tao was so good. But he was basically called Mercenary Tao, because people would hire him to do killing that the other guys couldn't do. He was that good. And, he was that, like, he has that, he's had moments during his time in Dragon Ball where he was like the comedic relief, but he was a serious fighter. And I think those two combinations just make for a character that you would want to see in a fighting game. So most definitely, even with his Z-Dash, like I could see him like throwing like a tree trunk or like a tree, log, and then dashing on it and then going into like a combo. I think there's some creative things you can do with a character like this, to the point where I'm like, I'll be interested to see him in this. But though I do think they would add Master Roshi before they add a character like this, though. But it's still like, this is my personal wish list. I honestly want him more so than Master Roshi, because we don't see him enough in the Dragon Ball in Dragon Ball fighting games. We don't see enough of him. And I think he's one of the lesser known. So now that we got the main list out the way, I want to talk about my honorable mentions. Now, these honorable mentions are characters that most people, you know, even though they haven't made their own list yet, I've had conversations on forums and other people's live streams in the chat, and they want these characters so bad, but these are characters I kind of avoided because, like I said, this DLC wish list of mine was basically to try to get away from doing so many clones of characters and more so focus on characters that don't really get that much attention. You know, there was a few characters on this list that are you know, familiar because of Dragon Ball Super, but I think most of the characters on this list, you know, they're lesser known, and I would like for them to get shine as DLC characters in the game with their play styles and what they're able to do and so forth. And an honorable mention, Super Saiyan Gogeta. You know, now I did mention that Janemba was a character that I would like to see made as actual DLC, but here's the thing. We already have like Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta, and really, do we really need, you know, more Goku, Vegeta-esque characters in this game already? I mean, we kind of already have like multiple ones already. Do we really need any more than that? You know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of trying to, I kind of don't want to see any more Goku clones, because there's a rumor already that Goku's going to have like a base form that they're going to make for DLC, even though it was a rumor, and I think the rumor got like tossed to the side. Just to even hear that, it's kind of like, oh man, 3, you know, versions of Goku. Do we really need that when that spot can be used for other characters that would make more sense in a Dragon Ball fighting game? Even for the newer faces in Dragon Ball, the newer characters, you can put one of them instead of another Goku clone. We already have, you know, Super Saiyan Goku, we have Super Saiyan Blue Goku, we have Super Saiyan Vegeta, we got Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta. You know what I mean? It's certain things that we don't need more of the same character. So with that being said, I mean, I personally don't want to see him in there, but what's funny is that, you know, and this is Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, going back to Dragon Ball GT, talking about Omega Shenron and Nova Shenron and so forth. This is another character I really don't want to see, but he gets an honorable mention as somebody who, what's funny is that some of these a few of these honorable mentions, like a couple of them, I think are actually going to be actual DLC. That's just my speculation. Nothing's been confirmed. It's just my own little hunch. I just got a feeling that some of these characters have a more likely chance of being DLC than some of the people that's on the DLC wish list. So I only got like 3 honorable mentions here, but 2 of these I already know for a fact have a better chance at being actual DLC that people wouldn't mind paying for. And last but not least, Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta. Now the reason why I'm putting him as an honorable mention is more so because he didn't really spend that much time in Dragon Ball Super. Like, you know what I mean? Even though he was during the Buu saga, the saga that he was actually a part of during the Buu saga wasn't really that long. He hasn't really had that much shine in Dragon Ball in its entirety. If you break down the number of minutes that he was supposedly in, quote unquote, you know, I think he was only Super Saiyan Blue Vegito for like 15 minutes in canon. Like when he begins, like when he went up against Zamasu. The length of time he was in that form when he went up against Super Buu after he absorbed Gohan was like an hour. You know what I mean? It's just like another Vegito, Goku. Again, we got too many of them already. Do we really need another one? But I have a funny hunch that he has more of a chance of being DLC than any other character. So, go figure. But ladies and gentlemen, that was my Dragon Ball FighterZ wish list. I'm gonna say it again. This wish list was comprised of characters of lesser known characters for the majority of it. It focused on the characters that I felt fit a Dragon Ball Z fighting game like this. And it's ironic because I've spoken negatively about how I feel about the game and things like that, but regardless of the fact, I like Dragon Ball Z. I've always liked Dragon Ball Z since the 90s when it first got started. You know, the original Dragon Ball, and now that they made a fighting game like this, I can only imagine the characters that are on my wish list, they would actually fit, if you think about it, in a game like this. But this is all dependent on I don't know if they're going to make a sequel to this. I don't know if it's going to be a Dragon Ball FighterZ 2. I don't know if they're going to do like another DLC pack with like maybe 8 more characters or 10 more characters or whatever. I don't know. But there's only 6 more characters that have yet to be revealed for the DLC pack. You know, they already announced Broly. They already announced that they were doing Bardock. And with those 2 being in the game, you know, it's only, you know, like we can only speculate as to who the other 6 characters are going to be for the DLC packs. So that's basically it, man. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed my wish list. Who would you like to see as DLC in Dragon Ball FighterZ? And nonetheless, I'm kind of sick. Nonetheless, that's it, man. So tell me what you guys think about my DLC wish list. And I'll see you guys later. Until then, keep on gaming.